You are barren? How dare you lie to me? I reject you, Lyra. You are not worthy of me.
Please don't. She is lying against me. I have no one, Kael.
You are banished from the kingdom. Banished!
I can't believe Kael will do this to me after everything we have been through together.
Tell me, little wolf, what will you give me if I give you everything they denied you?
I didn't lie to His Majesty. I'm not barren.
Then prove it.
Lyra Vale stood alone at the great hall centre. Hundreds of wolves surrounded her, watching, waiting, judging. At the far end of the hall, elevated above them all, sat the throne of the Alpha King. Carved from blackened bone and ancient wood, a symbol of strength and merciless rule. And on it sat her mate, Kael Draven. Her chest tightened painfully at the sight of him, tall, unyielding, untouchable. Everything she had once believed herself destined to stand beside. But tonight, he did not look like her mate. Tonight, he looked like her executioner. "Bring her forward." The voice came not from Kael, but from the woman seated beside him, Queen Mother Selene. Her silver hair gleamed beneath the torchlight, her lips curved into something that barely resembled a smile. There was no warmth in it, only satisfaction. Lyra swallowed hard. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to move. One step, then another. Each echo of her footsteps rang too loudly. Like a countdown, none of them cared to stop. She could feel it, the bond between her and Kael. Once it had been warm, steady, unbreakable. Now it flickered like a dying flame. "Stop," Selene commanded. Lyra obeyed. She stood just below the steps of the throne, close enough to see every detail of Kael's face, and far enough to feel the distance he had placed between them. He still hadn't looked at her, not once. Her hands trembled at her sides. "Kael, nothing." The court healer stepped forward, bowing deeply. His expression was grave, but there was something else there too. Fear. "Your Majesty," he began carefully, "the examination has been completed." A hush fell over the hall. Even the torches seemed to still. Lyra's heartbeat thundered in her ears. "No, no, no, no. Speak," Kael said at last. His voice was cold, detached, unfamiliar. The healer hesitated, just for a moment. But it was enough. Selene's gaze sharpened. "You were given an order." Lyra's breath hitched. "Wait," she said quickly, panic rising. "There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake," Selene cut in smoothly. The healer closed his eyes briefly, then spoke. "She cannot bear children." The words shattered the world. A ripple tore through the court. Gasps, murmurs, whispers that spread like wildfire. Barren. A Luna who cannot produce heirs. Unacceptable. Lyra staggered back, the sound of their voices crashing into her like waves. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "That's not true. It can't be. It is enough." Kael's voice silenced the room. And her. Slowly, finally. He stood. The air shifted instantly, heavy with alpha dominance. Power rolled off him in suffocating waves, forcing heads to bow, bodies to stiffen. Lyra couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He descended the steps toward her, each movement measured, deliberate, unstoppable. When he reached her, he was so close she could feel the heat of his body. But not the bond. Never the bond. She looked up at him, her eyes pleading. "Kael, you know me. You feel it. The bond. It's still there, I know it is. You can't believe this. I feel nothing." The lie struck harder than any blade. Her breath caught. "No. You're lying," she said, her voice trembling. "You have to be." "You are weak," he continued, as if she hadn't spoken at all. "And now, useless." The bond inside her flickered violently. "Cracking. Breaking. Please." Tears blurred her vision. "Don't do this. I'm your mate. I'm meant to stand beside you. You were..." The finality in his tone was devastating. The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. "And then?" He spoke the words that destroyed her. "I, Alpha King Kael Draven, reject you, Lyra Vale, as my mate and Luna." Something inside her snapped. Pain exploded through her chest, raw and brutal, like her soul was being torn apart from the inside out. Lyra screamed. The sound ripped from her throat without restraint as she collapsed to the cold stone floor. It felt like dying, like being hollowed out and left empty. The bond, once warm and alive, shattered into nothing. Gasps echoed around the hall. But no one moved. No one helped her. Through the haze of agony, she saw him standing over her, unaffected, untouched, as if she had never mattered at all. "Kael," she choked, reaching weakly toward him. He stepped back, out of reach. "Take her away," he said coldly. Her hand fell to the floor. "Dispose of her." The words echoed louder than her scream. Rough hands seized her arms, dragging her across the stone. Her body barely responded, limp from the pain, her vision swimming with darkness. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be how it ended. Not like this. Not for something that wasn't even true. "I'm not barren," she whispered weakly, though no one listened. "I'm not." The massive doors of the great hall opened. Cold night air rushed in, and with it, the end of everything she had ever known. As she was dragged into the darkness, the last thing Lyra saw was the throne, and the king who had destroyed her. The night swallowed her whole. Lyra barely registered the moment the great doors slammed shut behind her. The sound echoed like a final verdict, loud, absolute, irreversible. Exiled, discarded, nothing. The guards dragged her down the stone steps of the palace, their grips bruising, unforgiving. Her feet stumbled against the ground, her body too weak to resist, her mind too shattered to understand how everything had unraveled so quickly. The bond was gone, truly gone. Where warmth had once lived, there was only a hollow ache, cold and endless. She couldn't feel him anymore. Kael, her mate, her king, her ruin. "Get up!" one of the guards snapped, yanking her forward when she faltered. I can't," she whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. "Not our problem." They didn't slow, didn't care. They dragged her beyond the towering walls of the Wolf Kingdom, past the last torchlit paths and into lands where no patrols ventured, where no wolf dared linger. The air changed first, colder, heavier, alive in a way that made her skin prickle. Lyra's hazy gaze lifted weakly. The forest loomed ahead, dark, ancient, and impossibly still. The forbidden forest. Even in her broken state, fear curled deep in her chest. "No," she rasped, shaking her head faintly. "Not there." The guards laughed. Perfect place for something unwanted. They crossed the invisible boundary, and everything changed. The sounds of the world disappeared. No wind, no insects, no distant calls of night creatures, only silence. A suffocating, watching silence. The trees were enormous, their twisted branches clawing toward the sky like reaching hands. Their bark shimmered faintly under the moonlight, etched with patterns that seemed to shift if she looked too long. Magic. Old magic. Not wolf. Not human. Fae. Lyra's breath came shallow and uneven. "Please," she begged weakly, "don't leave me here." One guard finally released her, letting her collapse hard onto the forest floor. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. "Be grateful," he muttered. "The things in here will make it quick. Or not," the other added with a smirk. A cruel shove sent her rolling onto her side. Pain flared through her body, but it barely registered over the emptiness inside her chest. "I'm not barren," she whispered again, the words fragile, desperate. "I'm not," but they were already turning away, already leaving. Their footsteps faded quickly, too quickly, as if even they feared lingering. And then, she was alone, truly alone. The silence pressed in. Lyra curled into herself, her body trembling violently. Tears slipped down her temples into the cold earth beneath her, her fingers clawing weakly at the dirt as if she could anchor herself to something, anything. This wasn't supposed to be her fate. She had done everything right. She had been loyal, faithful, strong, and still rejected. Her chest tightened painfully. "I didn't lie," she whispered to the empty forest. "I didn't." Her voice broke. The words dissolved into quiet sobs. Time passed. Or maybe it didn't. In the forest, it was impossible to tell. The darkness seemed to deepen, shifting around her, breathing with a rhythm that wasn't her own. Then, The wind stirred. Not gently, not naturally. It curled through the trees like a whisper, brushing against her skin with icy fingers. Lyra stiffened. Something was wrong. Something was watching. A faint crunch of leaves echoed nearby. Her breath caught. Slowly, painfully, she lifted her head. "Hello?" she called weakly. No answer, only silence. Then, a voice, low, smooth, amused, interesting. Lyra froze. It wasn't human. It wasn't wolf. It was something else entirely, something ancient, something dangerous. A figure stepped from the shadows between the trees. At first she thought she was hallucinating. No one could look like that. He was tall, too tall, his presence commanding in a way that made the air feel heavy. His features were impossibly sharp, beautiful, in a way that felt wrong, unnatural. His silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim light, and his eyes glowed, not brightly, but enough, like starlight trapped beneath ice. Fae. Terror gripped her. Lyra tried to push herself back, to crawl away, but her body refused to cooperate. "Please," she rasped, "just leave me alone." The Fae tilted his head slightly, studying her as one might study something rare or broken. "Such cruelty," he murmured, stepping closer. "To discard something so valuable." "I'm not valuable," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They made that clear." A faint smile curved his lips. "That is where they are wrong." He circled her slowly, his movements graceful, predatory. Lyra could feel his gaze tracing over her, not with lust, but with something far more unsettling. Recognition. "What are you?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. He stopped in front of her, crouched, close enough that she could feel the unnatural chill radiating from him. "Something your kind was wise enough to fear," he said softly. A cold finger slipped beneath her chin, lifting her face despite her weak resistance. She gasped at the contact. Magic. It pulsed through her skin, sharp and electric. His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. "You smell of a broken bond," he continued, his voice quieter now. "And yet," his gaze darkened slightly, "there is something else." Lyra's breath hitched. She swallowed. "I don't understand." "No," he murmured. "You don't." His hand hovered briefly over her abdomen, not touching, but close enough that she felt heat. No, not heat, power. Something inside her responded, a faint pulse, barely there, but real. The Fae's expression shifted, interest deepened into certainty. "Fascinating," he whispered. Lyra's heart pounded weakly. What is it?" His gaze snapped back to hers. "You," he said simply, "are not barren." The word struck her like lightning. Her eyes widened. "How do you know that?" she demanded, a flicker of desperate hope breaking through her fear. He smiled, slow, knowing. "Because I can feel what sleeps within you." The air around them shifted. Magic thickened, curling like invisible smoke. Lyra shook her head weakly. "No, they tested me. They said—" "They are wolves," he interrupted smoothly. "They understand strength, blood, instinct." His smile sharpened. "But they know nothing of magic." Something inside her stirred again, stronger this time. Alive. "What does that mean?" she whispered. He leaned closer, close enough that she could see the faint glow beneath his skin like veins filled with starlight. "It means," he said softly, "your body does not reject life." A pause. "It rejects theirs." Her breath stopped. The world seemed to tilt. "What?" "You were never meant to carry a wolf heir," he continued, his voice like silk over steel. "Which makes you useless to them." His gaze darkened with something dangerous. "But invaluable to me." Lyra stared at him, her thoughts spiraling. This couldn't be real. This had to be some cruel trick. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked, her voice trembling. He straightened slowly, towering over her once more. "Because," he said, "I have been searching for something rare." His eyes gleamed, something powerful. Silence stretched between them, heavy, charged. Then he extended his hand toward her, an invitation or a trap. "Come with me," he said. Lyra stared at his hand, at the faint glow of magic dancing along his fingers, at the unknown future it promised. "I have nothing left," she whispered. His smile returned. Dark, certain. That, he said softly, is precisely why you have everything to gain. Lyra hesitated. Only for a moment. Then, slowly. She placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, magic surged violently through her body, stealing her breath, igniting something deep within her chest, something that had not died with the bond. Something new, something dangerous. The Fae's grip tightened slightly, and for the first time since her world had shattered, Lyra felt something other than pain. Power. The forest seemed to breathe around them, watching, waiting, as if it knew nothing would ever be the same again. The moment Lyra touched him, the world broke. Magic tore through her like a storm unleashed, violent and consuming. Her body arched as a sharp cry ripped from her throat, her fingers tightening instinctively around his. It wasn't pain. Not entirely. It was something deeper, something awakening. The forest around them seemed to shudder in response, the ancient trees bending slightly, as if bowing to something unseen. Or someone. The Fae did not let go. His grip was firm, unyielding, anchoring her as the surge of power coursed through her veins. Easy, he murmured, though there was no real gentleness in his tone. Only control. Don't fight it. I'm not... Lyra gasped, her knees buckling. The ground never met her. Dark vines rose from the forest floor, curling around her form like living shadows, holding her upright. They did not hurt, but they did not comfort either. They obeyed him. Everything here obeyed him. Lyra's breath came in shallow bursts as the energy inside her slowly began to settle, though it didn't fade. It remained, burning, alive, changed. The Fae watched her closely, his glowing eyes filled with sharp calculation. Remarkable, he said softly. Lyra swallowed, her pulse racing. What did you do to me? A faint smirk touched his lips. I did nothing, he replied. I merely introduced you to what was already yours. Her hands trembled as she looked down at them. For a moment, just a moment, she swore she saw something flicker beneath her skin. Light, faint, but there. No, she whispered. This isn't possible. It is, he said simply. With a subtle flick of his fingers, the vines loosened, lowering her gently back onto her feet. This time she remained standing, barely, but standing. That power you feel, he continued, circling her once more, is not wolf. Lyra turned slowly, her gaze following him. Then what is it? She asked. He stopped behind her. Close, too close. She felt his presence before his voice reached her ear. Fae. Her breath hitched. That's impossible, she said quickly. I'm not Fae. I would know. You would know what you were told, he corrected smoothly. Not necessarily the truth. His hand hovered near her shoulder, never quite touching but close enough to send a shiver down her spine. There are many things your kind does not understand, he added. Your lineage among them. Lyra's mind reeled. Lineage? No, she shook her head. My parents were wolves. I was born in the kingdom. There's nothing special about me. You were rejected by an Alpha King, he interrupted quietly. That alone makes you far from ordinary. His words settled heavily between them. Lyra's chest tightened again, but this time the pain was different. Not empty, not broken. Something sharper, colder. Don't say it like that, she snapped weakly. Like it means something. Oh, it does, he said, amusement flickering in his voice. She turned to face him fully now. Why? She demanded. Why do you care what happened to me? For a moment, he said nothing. Then his expression shifted, not softer, never softer, but darker, more honest. Because, he said slowly, you are exactly what I need. A chill ran down her spine. And what is that? She asked. His gaze dropped briefly, just briefly, to her abdomen, then returned to her eyes. A vessel. The word hit her like a slap. Lyra recoiled. No. The single word was sharp despite her weakness. I'm not some object you can just use, she said, her voice trembling but firm. I won't trade one cage for another. The air around them stilled. The forest seemed to lean in, watching. The Fae studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, not mocking, not cruel, something approving. "Good," he said. Lyra blinked, caught off guard. "What? I was wondering if there was anything left of you worth keeping," he continued. "It seems there is." Her confusion deepened. "You're not making any sense." "No," he agreed. "Not yet." He stepped closer again, but this time slower, more deliberate. "As I said before," he continued, "Fae bargains are not simple things." Lyra's heart pounded. "You want something from me," she said carefully. "Yes, and you're offering, what, power, protection? Everything they denied you," he replied. His voice lowered slightly. "A place where you are not seen as weak," another step closer. "Where your worth is not measured by what you cannot give, but by what you are." Her breath caught. It was tempting. Too tempting. "And in return?" she asked, though she already feared the answer. His eyes darkened. "In return," he said, "you will give me heirs." Silence fell, heavy, unforgiving. Lyra stared at him, her thoughts spiraling. Heirs, the very thing she had been cast aside for. "You think I'd agree to that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think," he said calmly, "you already have." Her brows furrowed. "What are you talking about?" He lifted his hand slightly between them. Magic gathered instantly, swirling like dark mist around his fingers. "When you took my hand," he said softly, "you accepted the beginning of a bond." Lyra's blood ran cold. "No," she breathed. "No, you didn't say. I didn't need to." The mist thickened, glowing faintly now, familiar, terrifyingly familiar. Her chest tightened. "Not like this," she whispered. The memory of Kael's rejection flashed violently in her mind, the pain, the tearing, the emptiness. "I won't go through that again," she said, shaking her head. "I won't let anyone bind me just to break me." For the first time, something in his expression shifted, serious, sharp. "I do not break what is mine," he said quietly. The words weren't comforting, they were a promise. And a warning. Lyra swallowed hard. "What happens if I refuse?" she asked. The forest went still. Too still. The Fae tilted his head slightly. "You won't survive the night," he said simply. "No threat, just truth." Lyra's breath trembled. She already knew it. She had nothing left, nowhere to go, no one to return to. And yet, "If I agree," she whispered, "I won't belong to you." A pause. Then, a slow, dangerous smile spread across his lips. "Belonging," he said softly, "is a matter of perspective." Before she could react, his hand closed around hers again, but this time it burned. A surge of magic exploded between them, brighter, stronger than before. Symbols, ancient and shifting, flashed briefly around their joined hands before sinking into her skin. Lyra gasped, her body going rigid as the power seared through her. What? What did you do?" "The bargain is sealed," he said. Her heart stuttered. "What?" "You wanted terms," he continued calmly. "Now you have them." Her breathing turned frantic. "You didn't let me agree. You didn't refuse." The truth of it struck deep. The magic settled slowly, leaving behind something new. A thread, a connection, not like the mate bond, not warm, not gentle, but strong, unbreakable. Lyra looked down at her. A faint mark lingered there, dark and intricate, like thorns wrapped in a circle. Her stomach dropped. "This," she whispered, "this means I'm bound to you." "Yes, and I have to carry my heirs," he finished. Silence. Then, something unexpected happened. The crushing despair that had filled her since the rejection shifted, not gone, but changing, twisting into something sharper, stronger, purpose. Lyra lifted her gaze to meet his. "If I do this," she said slowly, "then I decide who I become." His eyes gleamed. "Of course. No one casts me aside again," she continued, her voice steadier now. "No one decides my worth." The faintest flicker of approval crossed his expression. "Then we understand each other." A breeze stirred through the forest once more, but this time it felt different, not watching, welcoming. The Fae stepped back, releasing her hand at last. "Come," he said. Lyra hesitated only for a second, then followed. As they walked deeper into the forest, the shadows seemed to part for them, revealing a path that hadn't existed before. Unknown, dangerous, irreversible. Behind her, the world she had known was already gone. Ahead, something far more powerful awaited, and far more terrifying. Because this time, Lyra was not walking toward her fate. She was stepping into it willing. The forest did not open. It devoured. Lyra realized it the moment she crossed deeper beyond the place she had first met him. The path beneath her feet, if it could even be called a path, shifted with every step, roots curling and uncurling like living things beneath the soil. She glanced behind her once. The way back was gone, not hidden, gone. A flicker of unease curled in her chest, but she forced herself forward. There was no turning back. Not anymore. Ahead of her, the Fae walked as if the forest itself bent to his will. "Where are you taking me?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. He didn't slow. "Home." The single word echoed strangely as though the forest itself whispered it back. "Home." Lyra almost laughed. She had just been cast out of hers. "I don't belong anywhere," she muttered. The Fae stopped abruptly. Lyra nearly walked into him. He turned, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "You belong exactly where power places you," he said, "and power has chosen you." Before she could respond, the world shifted. Not gradually, not gently. One moment, they stood among ancient trees. The next, reality fractured. The forest twisted inward, folding like fabric pulled too tight. Light and shadow warped together, colors bleeding into one another until Lyra couldn't tell where one ended and the next began. Her breath caught. "What is this?" "Do not resist," he said calmly. Too late. The ground vanished beneath her feet. Lyra gasped as she fell, but instead of hitting earth, she felt herself suspended in something weightless. The air turned thick, almost liquid, pressing against her skin as if trying to seep into her very bones. Magic, raw, unfiltered, it surged around her, through her, into her. And something inside her answered, not weakly, not faintly, but with force. A pulse of light burst from her chest, sharp and bright, cutting through the swirling darkness. The Fae's gaze snapped to her instantly. For the first time, he looked surprised. The power didn't fade. It grew. Lyra clutched her chest, her eyes wide as the energy spiraled outward, forming faint glowing threads that danced through the shifting void around them. I can't control it," she cried. "Don't," he said, his voice lower now, more focused. "Let it reveal itself." The threads tightened, twisted. Then, they snapped back into her body all at once. Lyra screamed as the force slammed into her, dropping her hard onto solid ground. This time, she felt it. Stone, cold, real. The world reformed around her in a rush. Lyra lay there for a moment, her breath ragged, her body trembling from the overwhelming surge. Then, slowly, she lifted her head and froze. This was not a forest. Not anymore. Before her stretched a realm that defied everything she understood. The sky above was not sky at all. It shimmered in deep shades of violet and black, streaked with silver light that moved like slow-burning fire. Massive trees towered in the distance, their leaves glowing faintly like stars trapped in branches. And at the center of it all, a palace. No, a fortress. It rose from the ground like it had been grown rather than built. Dark spires twisted together like thorns, curling toward the unnatural sky. Veins of silver light pulsed faintly through its structure, as if the entire thing were alive. Watching, waiting. Lyra pushed herself up slowly, her heart racing. "Where are we?" she whispered. "The Fae realm," he replied. She turned to him, her expression filled with disbelief. "This is impossible." "And yet," he said smoothly, "here you stand." A distant sound echoed across the air. Whispers. Not from one voice, from many. Lyra's skin prickled. "They know you're here," she said quietly. A faint smile touched his lips. "They feel you." That didn't comfort her, at all. "Why?" she asked. "What am I to them?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he began walking toward the palace. "Come," he said. Lyra hesitated. Just for a second, then followed. The closer they got, the heavier the air became. The whispers grew louder, not words she could understand, but sounds that brushed against her mind like fingers tracing unfamiliar patterns. Magic, ancient, hungry. By the time they reached the base of the palace, Lyra's pulse was hammering. The gates, if they could be called that, were massive, formed of intertwining black vines that shifted slowly as though breathing. They opened the moment he approached. No guards, no resistance, only obedience. Lyra stepped inside, and immediately wished she hadn't. The interior was vast, dimly lit by floating orbs of pale light. The walls seemed to move if she stared too long, shadows slipping and twisting in ways that made her stomach turn. And then she saw them, Fae, dozens of them, lining the hall. Every single one turned to look at her. Their appearances varied, some breathtakingly beautiful, others unsettling in ways she couldn't quite define. But all of them shared one thing, power. It radiated from them like heat, and every bit of it was focused on her. A murmur rippled through the hall. She's the one. Impossible. A wolf? Not just a wolf. Lyra stiffened, instinctively stepping closer to the Fae beside her. They're staring, she muttered. They are judging, he corrected. That didn't help. At all. A figure stepped forward from the crowd, taller than the others, more refined. His silver eyes narrowed slightly as he studied her. You bring a mortal into the court? He said, his tone laced with disbelief. Lyra bristled. I'm not. She is not mortal, her companion interrupted calmly. The hall went silent. Every eye sharpened. The other Fae's gaze flicked back to her, more intense now. Then what is she? He asked. A pause, a deliberate one. Then, the Fae beside her finally spoke. My queen. The words dropped like a stone into still water. Shock rippled outward instantly. Lyra's heart stopped. What? She breathed, turning to him. But he wasn't looking at her. He was watching their reactions. The murmurs turned into chaos. A queen? He's claiming her. That's madness. No, look at her aura. Lyra's head spun. This isn't funny, she whispered sharply. What are you doing? Slowly, he turned to face her. And for the first time since she had met him, there was no amusement in his expression, only something dark, ancient, absolute. I am giving you exactly what you were denied, he said. Her breath hitched. Your place. The air shifted again. He stepped closer, close enough that the entire hall seemed to fade into the background. You were cast aside as worthless, he continued quietly. So I will make you untouchable. Her pulse pounded in her ears. You said you wanted to choose who you become. His hand lifted. And this time it did touch her, resting lightly over her lower abdomen. Magic flared instantly, stronger than before, deeper, possessive. Then become something they will never be able to destroy. Lyra's breath caught sharply. What are you turning me into? She whispered. His eyes gleamed. Something even I did not expect to find. The mark on her hand burned. The power inside her surged again. But this time it didn't feel wild. It felt aligned, as if something within her had finally found its place. The hall fell completely silent, every Fae watching, waiting, sensing it, sensing her. And then, one by one, they bowed. Not to him, to her. Lyra's heart slammed against her ribs. I don't understand, she whispered. You will, he said softly. A faint, dangerous smile curved his lips. In time, they bowed. Every single one of them. Fae, ancient, powerful, terrifying beings, lowered their heads to her. Lyra stood frozen at the center of the hall, her breath shallow, her pulse pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. But no one rose. No one challenged it. The weight of their submission pressed against her like an invisible force, heavy and suffocating. Beside her, the Fae Prince watched in silence, not proud, not surprised, certain. Make them stop, Lyra said under her breath, her voice tight with panic. They will stop, he replied calmly, when you accept it. I don't want it, she snapped, her composure cracking. I don't even understand it. Understanding is not required, he said, Only power, that word again, power. It seemed to follow her now, cling to her like a shadow she couldn't escape. Slowly, hesitantly, the Fae began to rise, but their eyes never left her, and what she saw in them made her chest tighten. Not just curiosity, not just shock. Fear, and something darker. Resentment. She's unstable, one voice whispered from the side. She's dangerous, another murmured. She's wrong. Lyra flinched. The words hit deeper than she wanted to admit. The prince's gaze flicked briefly toward the crowd. Silence fell instantly. No one spoke again. But the tension remained, thick and coiled beneath the surface. "Come," he said, turning away from them, as if the entire court no longer mattered. Lyra hesitated, then followed. They walked deeper into the palace. The further they went, the stranger it became. The walls seemed to breathe, subtle, almost imperceptible shifts that made the structure feel alive. Silver veins of light pulsed beneath dark stone, like a heartbeat echoing through the entire fortress. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself. "Why did they bow?" she asked quietly. "You felt it," he replied without looking back. "Yes, but that doesn't explain anything. It explains everything." She frowned. "You're not making sense again." He stopped, turned, and this time, when he looked at her, there was no distance in it, no games. "Power recognizes power," he said, "and what you carry." His gaze dropped briefly, not just to her hand, but to her. All of her. They have never felt before. A chill ran through her. "I don't even know what I carry," she admitted. "No," he said softly. "But they do." Lyra swallowed. "That's not comforting. It isn't meant to be." Of course it wasn't. Nothing about this. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. "Then start explaining," she said. "If I'm supposed to stand in front of your entire court as some queen, I deserve to know what that actually means." For a moment, he simply studied her, as if deciding something. Then, very well, the air shifted subtly, not with magic this time. With gravity, with truth. "You are standing in the Court of Thorns," he said, "the oldest and most feared dominion of the Fae." Lyra's stomach tightened. "And you?" she asked. His gaze held hers, unblinking. "I am not simply a prince." A pause. Then, "I am its ruler." The words hit harder than anything else so far. Lyra stared at him. "You're the king? Among your kind, that would be the closest equivalent." Her mind reeled. She had made a bargain with a king, a Fae king, a very dangerous Fae king. "You didn't think that was important to mention?" she demanded. His lips curved faintly. "You did not ask. That's not how that works. It is here." Lyra let out a sharp breath, running a hand through her hair. "This is insane," she muttered. "I was just—" She stopped, her voice caught. Just what? A rejected mate? A discarded Luna? A mistake? The words wouldn't come anymore, because they didn't fit, not here, not now. "You were small," he said quietly. Her head snapped up. "I was not—" "You were made to feel small," he corrected smoothly. "There is a difference." Silence stretched between them, heavy, uncomfortable, because part of her knew he wasn't wrong. "I don't want power just because someone else took everything from me," she said after a moment. "Then take it because it is yours," he replied, simple, unyielding. Lyra exhaled slowly. "This doesn't feel like something that belongs to me," she admitted. "It will—" His confidence unsettled her more than anything else. Before she could respond, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. Lyra gasped, doubling over instinctively. "What?" The sensation wasn't like before. This wasn't wild magic. This was focused, deep. Her hand flew to her stomach, and the moment she touched it, something pulsed. Strong, deliberate, alive. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. It was too soon. It didn't make sense. It shouldn't be possible. But the feeling, she knew it. Some instinct deeper than thought recognized it instantly. The Fae King stepped closer. His expression didn't show surprise, only confirmation. "You feel it," he said. Lyra looked up at him, fear flickering in her eyes. "What is happening to me?" His gaze darkened slightly. "The bond is taking root. Her heart stuttered. No, that's not. This isn't how it works. This is not a wolf bond, he said. That much was obvious. Lyra shook her head, panic rising again. It's too fast, she whispered. This shouldn't. It should, he interrupted calmly. For what you are. There it was again, that phrase. What you are. What am I? She demanded, her voice breaking. Silence fell. He stepped even closer now, close enough that she could feel the steady, controlled power radiating from him. Close enough that there was no escaping his answer. You are a convergence, he said, her brows furrowed. A what? Wolf by birth, he continued, Fae by blood. Her breath stopped. The world seemed to tilt again. That's not possible. And yet, he said softly, you stand here, in my realm, wearing my mark, carrying my magic. His hand lifted once more, hovering just above her abdomen and already responding to it. The pulse came again, stronger this time. Lyra gasped. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her. That's not just magic, she whispered, her voice shaking. No one had to tell her what it felt like. Her body knew, even if her mind refused to accept it. His eyes held hers, dark, certain. No, he said, it isn't. The truth settled slowly, heavily, irreversibly. Lyra's fingers tightened against her stomach. This means, she trailed off. His voice finished it for her. You are already carrying my heirs. Silence, total, absolute. Her heart pounded violently. Her thoughts spiraled. This couldn't be real. It couldn't be happening this fast. And yet, the pulse came again. Undeniable. Alive. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes, but they didn't fall. Not this time. Because beneath the fear, beneath the shock, something else stirred. Something dark, something powerful, something that remembered the moment she had been cast aside. You said I was useless, she whispered, though Kael was nowhere near. Her voice steadied, hardened. They threw me away. Her gaze lifted slowly to meet the Fae King's. And now, the faintest edge of something dangerous crept into her expression. They'll never be able to ignore me again. For the first time. He smiled, not amused, not mocking, but approving. Yes, he said softly. The air in the hall seemed to tighten, as if the very realm itself was listening, waiting. And when they realize what they lost, he continued, his voice low and certain. Lyra's lips parted slightly. Her eyes darkened. They won't get me back. The words echoed like a vow, and somewhere, far beyond the Fae realm, a bond long broken stirred faintly, as if someone, had just begun to regret everything. Far from the court of thorns, beyond the veil of magic, across the borders of fear and pride, the wolf kingdom began to unravel. The great hall was not as it had been. It still stood tall, still commanded silence, still carried the scent of iron and cedar. But something was wrong. The air felt thin, unsteady, as if something vital had been ripped from its core, and every wolf in the kingdom felt it. Alpha King Kael Draven sat on his throne, rigid, silent, unmoving. The court had gathered again, but this time there was no spectacle, no whispers of anticipation, only unease. Kael's jaw tightened. Something had been clawing at him for hours, a faint, persistent sensation, like an itch beneath his skin he couldn't reach. It made no sense. The bond was gone. He had severed it himself, completely, cleanly. So why? His hand clenched against the arm of his throne. Your Majesty? The voice pulled him back. General Rykor stepped forward, broad-shouldered, battle-scarred, and loyal to the core. His golden eyes flickered with concern. You've called this meeting twice now and said nothing, Rykor continued carefully. Kael exhaled slowly. I feel something, he said. The hall shifted. Murmurs rippled faintly. Queen Mother Selene, seated beside him, did not react outwardly, but her fingers tightened ever so slightly against her armrest. That is impossible, she said smoothly. The bond was broken. I know what I did, Kael snapped, his voice sharper than intended. Silence fell instantly, but the tension thickened. It is not the bond, he added after a moment, his tone colder now. It's something else. Rykor frowned. An attack? No. Kael's gaze darkened. It's not external. A pause. It feels like... He hesitated, irritation flashing across his expression. Like something that should be mine, isn't. The words hung heavily in the air. Selene finally turned her head slightly toward him. You are unsettled, she said calmly. That is all. You removed a weakness from your life. Your instincts are adjusting. Kael didn't respond immediately, because for the first time, he wasn't entirely convinced. Meanwhile, at the edge of the kingdom, something far worse stirred. The forest line, once a clear boundary no wolf dared cross, had begun to change. The trees grew thicker, darker, their roots pushing further into wolf territory with unnatural speed. And the scouts had stopped returning. Say that again! Rykor stood in the war chamber now, his expression grim as a young scout trembled before him. They didn't come back, the scout repeated, his voice shaking. 3 of them. They crossed near the eastern ridge just to observe, but the trees... The trees? Rykor pressed. They moved, the scout whispered. Silence fell. That's not possible, another voice cut in. Beta Lyra stepped forward, sharp-eyed, calculating, and one of the few in the kingdom who dared challenge anything without fear. Trees don't move, she said flatly. They do now, the scout insisted, panic creeping into his voice. I saw it. The ground shifted. And then, something else was there. Rykor's gaze sharpened. What something? The scout swallowed hard. I don't know. That answer was worse than anything else. Back in the throne room, Kael stood now, staring out beyond the massive open archways. The sky was darker than it should have been. Clouds gathered unnaturally. Heavy, oppressive. What have you done? He murmured under his breath. Selene approached slowly. I have done what was necessary, she replied. Kael's gaze flicked toward her. Then why does it feel like a mistake? For the first time, Selene hesitated. Only briefly, but Kael noticed. You are overthinking, she said quickly. She was nothing. No, the word came out sharper than intended. Final. Selene's eyes narrowed slightly. Kael turned away again, his gaze distant. She wasn't nothing, he said quietly, and that realization came far too late. Back in the Fae realm, Lyra was not the same girl who had been dragged into the forest. Not anymore. The Court of Thorns buzzed with tension. Word had spread, fast. The wolves' rejected mate, the king's chosen queen, the bearer of something unprecedented. And not everyone was pleased. She should not be here. The voice was cold, precise, laced with quiet authority. Lyra stood at the center of a circular chamber, far smaller than the great hall but far more oppressive. Around her stood a select group of Fae, fewer in number but far more dangerous. The inner court, and the one who had spoken, stepped forward, tall, elegant, deadly. Her long dark hair fell like a shadow down her back, her silver eyes sharp with disapproval. This is not a matter of preference, she continued. It is a matter of balance. Lyra crossed her arms despite the tension in the room. And you are? She asked. A flicker of irritation crossed the woman's face. I am Lady Varith, she said. Keeper of the Veil. Lyra tilted her head slightly. Good for you. A few of the others shifted, clearly not expecting that response. Varith's eyes narrowed further. You carry power you do not understand, she said. Power that could fracture both realms if left unchecked. Lyra stepped forward slightly. Then maybe someone should start explaining instead of threatening. The room went still. Varith studied her carefully. Then, you speak boldly for someone so newly bound, she said. I've had a rough day, Lyra replied dryly. A pause. Then, a low chuckle broke the tension. Another figure stepped into view. Male, relaxed, dangerous in a completely different way. Careful, Varith, he said lazily. You might actually like her if she keeps that up. Lyra glanced at him. And you are? He grinned. Kaelion, he said, master of nothing important and everything annoying. Varith did not look amused. He is the king's spy, she said flatly. Kaelion placed a hand over his chest in mock offense. I prefer observer of interesting chaos. Lyra almost smiled. Almost. Until pain hit again, stronger this time. She sucked in a sharp breath, her hand flying to her abdomen. The room immediately shifted, all eyes locked onto her. Already? Varith murmured. Lyra's heart pounded. The pulse was stronger now, more defined. Not just one, two. Her breath hitched. No, she whispered. Kalion's playful expression vanished. Well, he said quietly, that's new. Lyra looked up, panic flickering in her eyes. What's happening? Before anyone could answer, he took in the scene in a single glance. Lyra, the inner court, the tension. Then his gaze locked onto her. What did you feel? He asked. Lyra swallowed hard. Two, she whispered. The room went completely still. Varith's expression darkened. Kaelion let out a low whistle. Well, he muttered, that complicates things. Lyra's pulse raced. What does that mean? The king stepped closer, slow, deliberate. It means, he said quietly, you are not carrying just heirs. A pause. His eyes darkened. You are carrying power that should not exist. The weight of his words settled heavily over the room. And for the first time since she arrived, Lyra felt it. Not just fear, not just confusion, but the undeniable truth. She wasn't just part of something dangerous. She was the center of far away. In the Wolf Kingdom, Kael suddenly dropped to one knee. Pain exploded through his chest. Raw, violent, unexplainable. What? He gasped. Rykor rushed forward. My king! Kael's eyes widened, because for just a split second, he felt it. Not the bond, but something else. Something distant, something powerful, something that did not belong to him but should have. And then, it vanished, leaving behind only one terrifying thought. She wasn't gone. She had become something else. The Court of Thorns did not sleep. It watched. It whispered. And now, it divided. Lyra could feel it, even before anyone spoke. The moment she stepped into the grand hall again, the air had changed. It no longer pressed on her with curiosity alone. Now it burned. Suspicion, jealousy, hatred, every pair of glowing eyes followed her as she walked beside the Fae King, their presence like a blade at her back. They weren't like this before, she muttered under her breath. They were, he replied calmly. You simply did not matter enough yet. Lyra clenched her jaw. That's comforting. It is not meant to be. Of course not. Nothing here ever was. The murmurs began the moment they reached the center of the hall. 2 heirs. Impossible. A wolf carrying Fae blood. She'll destabilize everything. Lyra stiffened. Her hand instinctively moved to her abdomen. The faint pulse was still there. Steady, alive, watching them, judging her. You could silence them, she said quietly. I could, the king replied. She glanced at him. But you won't. No. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Why? His gaze remained forward. Because fear reveals truth. That didn't make her feel any better. Your Majesty. The voice cut cleanly through the tension. Lady Varith stepped forward again, her expression colder than before. This cannot continue. The king did not respond immediately. Speak, he said at last. Varith's eyes flicked briefly toward Lyra, then back to him. The court grows unstable. Rumors spread beyond these walls. Other Fae courts are already sensing the disturbance. A ripple moved through the room. Lyra frowned slightly. Other courts? She whispered. Before the king could answer, Kaelion appeared beside her, as if summoned by curiosity alone. Oh yes, he said lightly. Thorns is not the only nightmare in existence. Lyra shot him a look. Good to know. There are rival courts, he continued, ignoring her tone. And they are far less tolerant of surprises. Varith's gaze sharpened. This is no longer internal, she said. If they learn what she carries. They will learn, the king interrupted. Silence fell. Varith's expression darkened. Then you are inviting war? No, he said calmly. I am preparing for it. The words settled heavily. Lyra's stomach tightened. War? Because of her? You should not be here. The voice came from behind her this time. Cold, sharp, filled with open disdain. Lyra turned. A new figure stood at the edge of the court. Tall, striking. His silver blonde hair fell loosely around his face, his eyes gleaming with something far less controlled than the others. Anger, pure, unfiltered. And you are? Lyra asked, already tired of that question. He didn't smile. I am Lord Thalen, he said, commander of the Thorn Guard. His gaze dropped briefly to her abdomen, and something ugly flickered across his face. You carry something that does not belong here. Lyra's spine straightened. Funny, she said coolly. I was told the same thing before I got here. A few Fae shifted uncomfortably. Thalen's jaw tightened. This is not a game, he snapped. You are a liability. And you're predictable, Lyra shot back. The tension snapped tight. Careful, he warned, stepping closer. You may have his protection, but that does not make you untouchable. Before Lyra could respond, the king moved. It was subtle, a single step forward, but the entire room reacted. Power surged, heavy, oppressive. Thalen froze, not out of fear, but restraint. She is under my protection, the king said quietly, and carrying my heirs. The words were deliberate, claiming, final. Thalen's expression darkened further. That is exactly the problem, he said. Lyra blinked. There it was. Not just anger, not just duty, something else, something sharper, jealousy. The realization hit her instantly, and for some reason, it irritated her. Oh, this is getting interesting, Kaelian murmured beside her. Not now, Lyra muttered. Definitely now. You risk everything for her, Thalen continued, his voice tight, for something you barely understand. The king's gaze hardened. I understand enough. No, Thalen said, you don't. A dangerous silence followed. Then, you are letting emotion cloud your judgment. That did it. The air cracked. Power surged violently from the king, slamming into the hall like a wave. The torches flickered wildly. Several Fae stepped back instinctively. I do not make decisions based on emotion, he said, his voice low and lethal. Thalen didn't move, but his next words were quieter, sharper. You already have. The implication hung in the air, heavy, unspoken. Lyra felt it immediately, and suddenly, every eye in the room shifted to her. Not as a threat, not as a mystery, but as something else, a weakness. Her stomach twisted. This is ridiculous, she said suddenly, stepping forward. All attention snapped to her. You're all arguing like I'm not even here, she continued. Like I'm some object you can pass around or blame for everything wrong in your world. Her voice steadied. Stronger. I didn't ask for this, she said. Not from him. Not from any of you. A pause. Then, but I'm not leaving. The words surprised even her. But once they were out, they felt right, solid, real. Thalen scoffed. You think this is your choice? Lyra met his gaze. Yes, she said simply. Something flickered in his expression. Not agreement, but not dismissal either. Then, pain hit again. Sharp, sudden. Lyra gasped, doubling over slightly. This time, the pulse wasn't steady. It clashed. Two forces, opposing. Her breath hitched. It's happening again, she whispered. The king was beside her instantly. What do you feel? Lyra shook her head, her voice strained. They're not the same, she said. They feel... She sucked in a breath. Different. The room went still. Varith's expression turned grim. That is not normal, she said. Kaelion let out a quiet breath. No, he agreed. It's not. The king's jaw tightened. Explain, Varith hesitated. For the first time, she looked uncertain. If what she's describing is true, she said slowly, then the heirs are not just powerful. A pause. They are divided. Lyra's heart pounded. What does that mean? Varith's gaze locked onto hers. It means, she said quietly, they may not exist in harmony. Silence crashed over the hall. Far away, in the Wolf Kingdom, the consequences had already begun. They're dead. Rykor's voice was grim. Kael stood at the edge of the forest now, his expression unreadable. The scouts, Rykor continued. We found what was left. Kael didn't look at him. What did you see? He asked. Rykor hesitated. Then, nothing natural. That was enough. Kael's gaze darkened. The forest loomed before him, alive, watching, waiting. And for the first time, he felt it clearly. Not the bond, but something deeper, a pull, faint, but undeniable. She's in there, he said. Rykor stiffened. That's impossible. No, Kael interrupted. His voice was certain now, cold, focused. She's not dead. A pause. Then, she's changed. The wind shifted through the trees, carrying something unfamiliar, something dangerous. Kael's eyes narrowed. Prepare the warriors, he said. Raikor's expression hardened. For what? Kael stepped forward, toward the forbidden forest. For war. Back in the Fae realm, Lyra stood surrounded by beings who feared her, resented her, and some already hated her, and deep within her, the two pulses clashed again, light and dark, power and power, not blending, not yielding, growing. And somewhere in the shadows of the court, unseen, unnoticed, a pair of eyes watched her, ancient, calculating, hungry. And so it begins, a soft voice whispered. The Court of Thorns had never felt so suffocating, not because of the Fae, not because of the whispers, but because of what stirred inside her. Lyra stood alone on a high balcony carved from black stone, the strange violet sky stretching endlessly above her. The air here was cooler, quieter, far from the judging eyes of the court. Yet her thoughts were louder than ever. 2 heartbeats, not hers, never hers. Her fingers rested lightly against her abdomen, her breath uneven as she focused. There, again, a pulse, then another, different, clashing. I don't understand you, she whispered softly. The wind stirred, brushing against her skin like a quiet answer that never came. You're not supposed to... Lyra didn't turn immediately. She had already begun to recognize his presence. Felt it. The air shifted when he was near, denser, charged, as if the world itself acknowledged him. You have a habit of appearing when I'm trying to think, she said. And you have a habit of thinking in circles, he replied. She exhaled softly, finally turning to face him. The Fae King stood just behind her, his silver hair catching the faint glow of the realm's light. There was something unreadable in his expression tonight, less distant than before, but not entirely open either. You said they're divided, Lyra said quietly. That something about them isn't right. They're not meant to be simple, he said. That's not reassuring. It is not meant to be... A faint, tired smile tugged at her lips despite everything. You really don't know how to comfort someone, do you? I do not see the purpose in false comfort. Lyra studied him for a moment. You don't do anything halfway, do you? She murmured. His gaze met hers. No. The answer was simple, but there was something beneath it, something deeper. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable this time, but heavy, charged with things neither of them had said. Lyra looked away first. I should hate you, she admitted quietly. He didn't react. You bound me without asking, she continued. You turned my entire life upside down in a matter of moments. Still nothing. But he hadn't looked away. And yet, she hesitated. Her fingers curled slightly against the stone railing. I don't feel the same emptiness I did before. That seemed to catch his attention. You feel something else, he said. It wasn't a question. Lyra swallowed. Yes, the word was barely a whisper. Stronger? She nodded slowly. Clearer, she corrected. A pause. Then, alive. The word lingered in the air between them. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the king stepped closer. Not abruptly, not forcefully, just enough that the space between them began to disappear. You were never meant to be empty, he said quietly. Lyra's breath caught. There was something different in his voice now, less distant, more present. And yet I was, she said softly, until you decided otherwise. His gaze darkened slightly. I revealed what was already there, without giving me a choice. You had a choice, he said. Lyra frowned. I didn't... You could have let yourself die in that forest, he interrupted. The truth of it hit harder than she expected. She hadn't wanted to admit that, even to herself. I didn't want to die, she said after a moment. No, he said quietly, you didn't. Another step closer. Now there was barely any space left between them. Lyra could feel the faint hum of magic around him, stronger up close, almost intoxicating. You chose to live, he continued. Her heart began to beat faster. And now you must choose what that life becomes. His hand lifted slowly. This time, he didn't hesitate. His fingers brushed lightly against her wrist. The contact was subtle, but the effect, immediate. Magic surged, not violently like before, but smoothly, like a current finding its path. It flowed from him into her, intertwining with the power already growing inside her. Lyra inhaled sharply. "That feeling," she whispered. "It is ours," he said. "Ours." The word sent something unfamiliar through her chest. Not the sharp ache of a broken bond, not the hollow emptiness that followed. Something warmer, stronger, different. Her gaze lifted to his. "You said you don't break what belongs to you," she said softly. "I do not. And what am I to you?" she asked. The question hung between them. Dangerous, honest, for once. He didn't answer immediately. His hand tightened slightly around her wrist, his thumb brushing faintly against her skin. Not possessive, not forceful, intentional. "You are not fragile," he said at last. Her breath caught. "You are not weak." Another step closer. "You are not something to be discarded." His voice lowered, quieter. "But you are not entirely mine either." Lyra blinked. That she hadn't expected. "What does that mean?" she asked. His gaze held hers. "It means," he said slowly, "you are something I cannot fully control." The admission was quiet, but powerful. Lyra's pulse quickened. "And that doesn't bother you?" she asked. A faint, dangerous smile touched his lips. "It interests me." Of course it did. And yet, for some reason, that answer didn't scare her, not the way it should have. The wind shifted around them again, carrying the faint scent of something unfamiliar, sharp, electric, alive. Lyra's free hand moved instinctively to her abdomen. The pulses responded instantly, stronger, brighter. The king's gaze dropped briefly. "They react to you," she said. "They react to us," he corrected. Her heart skipped. "They feel what you feel," he continued. "And what I give them," Lyra swallowed. "That's a lot of influence. It is," a pause. "And yet you are still yourself." She looked back at him. "You're not trying to take that away?" "No." The answer was immediate, certain. Lyra searched his expression, for deception, for control, for anything that felt like a cage, but there was none, only intention, only purpose, and something else. Something she couldn't quite name. "You're dangerous," she said quietly. "I am, and I should be afraid of you." "Yes." She held his gaze. "I'm not." The words were soft, but real. Something shifted in his expression then, subtle, but undeniable. His hand moved from her wrist, slowly, deliberately, until it rested just above her hand against her abdomen. Not pressing, not claiming, just there. A shared point, a connection. The magic between them deepened, not overwhelming, not consuming, but steady, intimate. Lyra's breath softened. The tension in her shoulders eased for the first time since she had entered this realm. "You're changing me," she whispered. His voice was just as quiet. "No." A pause. "You are becoming—" The words settled deep, far deeper than anything else he had said. Lyra closed her eyes briefly, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, she didn't feel lost. She didn't feel broken. She didn't feel discarded. She felt seen. When she opened her eyes again, he was still there, still watching, not as something weak, not as something temporary, but as something real. And for the first time, she didn't look away. Far beyond the Fae realm, the forest trembled, wolves gathered, war approached. But here, on a quiet balcony beneath an unnatural sky, something else had begun. Not war, not destruction, but a connection neither of them had expected, and neither fully understood. The Court of Thorns was never quiet. Even in its silence it whispered. Magic humming through stone, shadows shifting like breath beneath the walls. But tonight, Lyra had found a place untouched by it, or at least, quieter. It was a garden, if it could be called that, hidden deep within the palace, beyond corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves unless one walked with purpose. The space opened into a hollow beneath towering silver-barked trees, their leaves glowing faintly like falling starlight. Dark water pooled at the center, perfectly still, like a mirror untouched by time. Lyra knelt beside it. Her reflection stared back at her. But it wasn't the same girl. Her features were sharper now, her eyes brighter, faintly glowing in a way that unsettled her if she looked too long. There was something beneath her skin, something alive, something that didn't belong to the girl who had once stood trembling in a wolf court. "You're changing," she whispered to her reflection. The reflection didn't answer, but the water rippled, even though nothing had touched it. Lyra stilled. "You found it." She didn't turn. Not immediately. She didn't need to. "I was hoping you wouldn't," she said softly. Footsteps approached behind her, unhurried, certain. "You chose a place that does not like to remain hidden," he replied. Lyra exhaled faintly. "Story of my life." A pause. Then, "Do you always follow me?" she asked. "Only when you go somewhere you should not." That made her glance over her shoulder. "And this is one of those places?" He stood at the edge of the clearing, watching her, always watching her. "Yes," he said. Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Then why didn't you stop me?" A faint shift in his expression. "Because I wanted to see what you would do," she huffed softly. "You could have just asked. That would have defeated the purpose. Of course it would have." Lyra turned back to the water. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't tense, not like before. It stretched slowly, like something learning how to exist between them. "You come here often?" she asked eventually. "No." That surprised her. She glanced back again. "Then why does it feel like you know it?" His gaze moved briefly to the water, then back to her. "Because this place responds to power," he said. "And I have ruled long enough to understand what answers to it." Lyra frowned slightly. "And me?" A pause. Then, "It answered you." The weight of that settled slowly. Lyra looked down at the water again. "It feels different here," she admitted. "Quieter." "It is not quiet," he said. She looked up. "It listens." That sent a faint chill through her. "Great," she muttered. "So now I'm being watched by gardens too." A flicker of something almost like amusement touched his expression. "Only if you give it something worth watching." Lyra rolled her eyes faintly. "You say that like I'm trying—" "You are," he said. Her breath caught, just slightly. "I'm not," she said more quietly. "You are surviving," he corrected. "A beat. And that requires effort." Lyra looked away again. That word, surviving. It shouldn't have felt as heavy as it did. "I didn't think I'd still be here," she admitted. He didn't ask what she meant. He understood. "You were not meant to disappear," he said. She let out a quiet breath. "That's not what my world decided." "No," he said. "It is what they failed to see." Lyra's fingers brushed lightly over the surface of the water. This time, it responded instantly. Ripples spread outward, faint silver light trailing behind them. She froze. "I didn't—" "I know," he said. She looked up at him. His gaze had sharpened slightly, not alarmed, but attentive. "Try again," he said. Lyra hesitated. Then slowly, she touched the water once more. The reaction was stronger this time. Light bloomed beneath the surface, swirling upward like something awakening. Her breath hitched. "It's reacting to me." "Yes." His voice was quieter now, closer. Lyra hadn't even noticed him move, but he was no longer at the edge of the clearing. He stood just behind her. The space between them, gone. "It feels—" She struggled for the word. "Alive?" She nodded. "And it feels you—" Lyra swallowed. "That's new. It is—" A pause. "And yet you are not afraid." She stilled. "I should be," she said softly. "But you are not." Lyra shook her head faintly. "I've been afraid enough." Silence settled again. But this time, it shifted. Something unspoken passed between them. Something quieter, deep. "Earlier," she said after a moment, "in the court." He didn't respond, but he was listening. "They were looking at me like I was something dangerous," she continued. "Like I don't belong here." "You are dangerous," he said. "That's not comforting. It is not meant to be." She huffed softly. "You really don't change, do you?" "No." A beat. "Do you want me to—" Lyra paused. Then, "I don't know. That was the truth. And somehow, It felt heavier than anything else she'd said. The water shimmered again. Stronger this time. Lyra's hand pressed more firmly against its surface without thinking. The light surged, and something inside her responded instantly. Her breath caught sharply as the familiar pulse flared. Then, another, different, clashing. She gasped. They're reacting again. His hand closed gently but firmly around her wrist. Not to stop her, to steady her. Focus, he said quietly. No, he murmured. Not on them. On yourself. Lyra's breathing was uneven, her thoughts scattered. I don't know how. Yes, you do. His voice was closer now, lower, steadier. Feel it, he said, not as something separate, as something that is part of you. Lyra swallowed. Her eyes fluttered shut. The pulses clashed again. Light and dark, power and power. But this time, she didn't resist it, didn't panic. She let herself feel it. All of it. The chaos, the strength, the pull. And slowly, very slowly, it began to steady, not merging, not blending, but balancing. Her breathing softened. The tension in her body eased. The light in the water dimmed, settled. When she opened her eyes again, the world felt clearer, quieter. You did it, he said. Lyra blinked. I did something. Almost smile touched his lips. You are learning. She let out a soft breath. That didn't feel like learning. It rarely does. Lyra glanced at him. You're very calm about all of this. I am not calm, he said. That caught her off guard. You're not? No. A pause. Then, I am watching. Her pulse skipped slightly. For what? She asked. His gaze held hers. For what you will become. The words weren't cold. They weren't distant. They were intent, focused. And something about that made her chest tighten in a way she didn't fully understand. They stood there for a long moment. Too close, too aware. The air between them felt different now. Not tense, not sharp, but something slower, building, unspoken. Lyra should have stepped back. She knew that. But she didn't. Why me? She asked softly. The question slipped out before she could stop it. It wasn't about power, or fate, or magic. It was something else, something quieter. His expression didn't change, but his voice did, softer. Because you did not break. Her breath caught. They tried, he continued. They took everything from you, your place, your bond, your worth. A step closer. And you still chose to stand. Lyra's chest tightened. That doesn't feel like strength, she whispered. It is. The certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. And for the first time, she didn't argue. The water stilled completely. The garden fell quiet again. But something had shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once, just enough to feel it, enough to know. This wasn't just a bond of power anymore, and that realization was far more dangerous than anything else, far beyond the Fae realm. The forest trembled. Kael stepped closer to its edge, closer than any wolf had dared in centuries, and this time, something inside the forest answered. Back in the garden. Lyra finally stepped back. Just a little, just enough to breathe, but not enough to forget how close he had been, or how it had felt. The peace didn't last. It never did. Lyra felt it before she saw it. A shift, subtle, wrong. The garden had gone too still. Not the quiet, watchful stillness she had begun to recognize. This was something else, something waiting. Her steps slowed as she moved along the silver-lit path, her senses sharper now than they had ever been in her old life. You're not alone, she murmured under her breath. The air answered with silence, but her instincts, they screamed. Careful, little wolf. The voice slid through the shadows like a blade, smooth, cold, poisoned. Lyra didn't turn immediately. She exhaled slowly instead. I was wondering when one of you would try something, she said. A soft laugh echoed behind her. Oh, we've all been wondering, the voice replied. The question was simply who would act first. Lyra turned, and there she was. Not Lady Verith, not someone bound by rules or court politics. This one radiated something far more dangerous, beautiful, deadly, unhinged. I don't think we've met, Lyra said, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her chest. The woman smiled, too wide, too sharp. "Lady Serelith," she said, "and you are a problem." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "Funny, I've been called worse." "I'm sure you have," Serelith said softly, stepping closer, "but none of it quite captures what you are." Her gaze dropped to Lyra's abdomen, and the air changed instantly. Heavy, hungry. "You shouldn't exist," Serelith whispered. Lyra's hand instinctively moved protectively over her stomach. "Yeah," she said quietly. "That seems to be a popular opinion." Serelith's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You carry power that does not belong to you," she said. "Power that could unravel everything, or change it," Lyra shot back. Serelith's expression snapped. "There is nothing wrong with how things are." Lyra let out a small, humorless breath. Spoken like someone who's never been cast aside. That hit, harder than Lyra expected. Serelith's eyes darkened instantly. "You think you understand loss?" she hissed. The magic around her flared, sharp, violent. "I have watched centuries pass while lesser beings were chosen over me," she continued, her voice trembling with something dangerously close to rage. "I have stood beside power, served it, only to be overlooked." Lyra stilled. Ah, there it was. Jealousy. Not just of Lyra, of what she represented. "What you have," Serelith said, her voice dropping to something quieter, more dangerous, "should have been mine." Lyra's chest tightened. "You don't want this," she said. "I want what it means," Serelith snapped. Power surged. The ground beneath them cracked faintly as something ancient responded to her anger. "And you," her voice sharpened, "are unworthy of it." Lyra didn't move, didn't step back, even as the danger became undeniable. "Maybe," she said quietly. Serelith blinked. That wasn't the response she expected. "But I'm still the one who has it," Lyra continued. "A beat. And I'm not giving it up." That was it. The final spark. Serelith moved. Fast. Too fast. Magic lashed outward like a living thing, twisting into something dark and lethal aimed straight for Lyra's chest. Lyra barely had time to react. The world slowed. The pulses inside her flared violently, light and dark colliding, her breath hitched, and then impact, but not on her. A force slammed between them, sharp, absolute, unyielding. Serelith's attack shattered mid-air like glass hitting steel. The backlash exploded outward, sending a shockwave through the garden. Lyra staggered back. But she didn't fall, because he was there. The Fae King stood between them. Still, silent. But the air around him, it had changed. Gone was the quiet, controlled power he carried in the court. This was something else, ancient, terrifying, unleashed. Serelith froze. For the first time, fear flickered across her face. "My king," she began. "Enough." The word wasn't loud, but it landed like a command written into reality itself. The garden bent around it, the trees stilled, the water trembled, even the air seemed to hold its breath. Serelith dropped to one knee instantly. "I was only—" "Do not insult me with lies." His voice was calm, too calm. Lyra had learned enough to know. That was worse, much worse. Serelith's hands trembled. "She is a threat," she said quickly, "to the court, to the balance. She is under my protection." The words cut cleanly through her panic. Final, unyielding. Serelith swallowed hard. "My king, she is changing things we cannot control." "Yes." The single word silenced. "And that is precisely why she will live." Lyra's breath caught. Serelith's expression twisted. "But she is nothing," she snapped before she could stop herself. The air snapped, power surged, and suddenly, Serelith couldn't move. Her body locked in place, magic binding her where she knelt. The king stepped forward, slow, deliberate, every movement measured, every step heavy with consequence. "Nothing?" he repeated quietly. Serelith's eyes widened. "I didn't mean, you acted without permission." "Another step. You raised your power against what is mine." "Another. You attempted to kill what carries my heirs." The last word lingered. Dark, dangerous, final. Serelith's breathing became uneven. "My king, I—" "Touch her." His voice dropped. Low, lethal, and you die. Silence crashed down. Absolute, unforgiving. Lyra felt it in her bones. That wasn't a threat. It was a law. Serelith felt it too. Her fear was no longer hidden. It consumed her. I was protecting the court, she whispered desperate. You were acting on jealousy. The truth landed like a blade. Serelith flinched. You have overstepped for the last time. The garden darkened. Shadows curled unnaturally at the edges of the clearing. Something ancient stirred beneath the surface of the realm itself, waiting, listening, hungry. Lyra's pulse quickened. What are you doing? She asked quietly. The king didn't look at her. Ending a problem. Serelith's head snapped up. No, please, she gasped. The shadows moved, rising, coiling, answering him. Lyra stepped forward instinctively. Wait, that made him pause, just slightly. Serelith froze. Everyone did. Lyra swallowed. You don't have to kill her, she said. The words felt fragile in a place like this, but she meant them. The king turned his head slowly. His gaze found hers, dark, unreadable. She tried to kill you. I know. A pause. And she failed. The shadows hesitated. Just slightly. Lyra held his gaze. I'm still here, she said softly. Something shifted, barely noticeable, but the tension in the air wavered. The king studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, the shadows receded. Serelith collapsed forward, gasping, alive, but shaken to her core. This is your only reprieve, he said coldly. You will not receive another. Serelith didn't argue, didn't protest. She knew she had come closer to death than most ever did. Silence returned to the garden. But it wasn't the same. Lyra exhaled slowly, her heart still racing. That was intense, she muttered. The king turned fully toward her now. You should not have intervened. Probably not. A pause. But I did. He studied her. Carefully. You showed mercy to someone who would not show it to you. Lyra shrugged faintly. Maybe. Her hand rested lightly over her abdomen again. Or maybe I just didn't want your heirs to start their lives surrounded by death. That caught him off guard. Just slightly. To her. You think that changes anything? No, she said honestly. A beat. But maybe it changes something. Silence stretched between them again. But this time, it was heavier, more aware, more real. You protected me, she said quietly. I told you I would. You meant it. Yes. Lyra held his gaze. And for the first time, she believed him completely. Far beyond the Fae realm, Kael crossed the threshold. The forbidden forest closed behind him. And something ancient finally took note. Back in the garden, the danger had passed, but something else had taken its place. Not fear, not tension, something slower, something deeper, and far more dangerous than either of them were ready to admit. The garden had not forgotten. Magic still lingered in the air, thick, charged, alive with everything that had just happened. Lyra could still feel it in her veins, the fear, the power, and something else, something far more dangerous. You shouldn't have stopped me. His voice was quieter now, but no less intense. Lyra turned to face him fully. And you shouldn't be so quick to kill, she replied, a faint narrowing of his eyes. You think that was quick? She hesitated. No, because it hadn't been. It had been controlled, deliberate, worse than rage. They stood too close, closer than before, and neither of them moved away. The space between them felt fragile, like something waiting to break or ignite. She would have killed you. I know, and you still chose to protect her. Lyra exhaled slowly. I didn't protect her, she said. I stopped you. A pause. Why? The question was simple, but heavy. Lyra searched for the answer. I don't want to become something cruel just because I've been hurt, she said finally. Silence. The kind that settles deep. The kind that means something. His gaze didn't leave hers. You already are something dangerous, he said. Lyra swallowed. Dangerous doesn't have to mean heartless. Another pause. Then, you are not what I expected. Her breath caught slightly. Good or bad? His eyes darkened faintly. I have not decided. That should have irritated her. But it didn't. Not when he was looking at her like that. Like she was something he couldn't quite figure out. And didn't want to. The air shifted again. Subtle, but different. The magic between them stirred, drawn, responding. Lyra felt it first. That pull, low, warm, unsettling. Her heartbeat quickened. They're reacting again, she whispered. They are not the only ones. Her eyes lifted to his, too fast, too aware. What does that mean? She asked softly. He didn't answer, not with words. He stepped closer. This time, there was no space left. Lyra's breath caught. She should move, she knew she should, but she... His hand lifted slowly, not rushed, not forceful, just certain. His fingers brushed lightly along her jaw, tilting her face up just enough. The touch was gentle, but it sent a sharp electric feeling through her entire body. You are trembling, he said quietly. I'm not afraid, she whispered. I know. That made her breath hit. The world around them seemed to fade. The garden, the court, the danger, all of it, distant, irrelevant. There was only this moment, this closeness, this tension that had been building since the moment they met. You should step back, Lyra said softly. You should ask me to... Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. He closed the distance and kissed. The connection between them flared, not just physical, something deeper, something tied to the bond, to the power, to the life growing inside her. It pulsed in sync with them, bright, alive, watching. He pulled back first, barely, just enough. Their foreheads nearly touching, her breathing uneven, his steady, but heavier than before. You feel it, he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Lyra nodded faintly. Yes. Her voice was soft, unsteady. It's not just me, is it? No. A pause. It is us. Her heart skipped. She should have stepped away, created distance, regained control. Instead, her hand lifted to his chest, resting there, feeling the steady strength beneath her palm. You said you don't act on emotion, she whispered. I do not. Her lips curved faintly. Then what was that? For the first time. He didn't answer immediately. His gaze held hers. Intense, focused, unreadable. Then, that was a choice. Her breath caught again. This time, she kissed him. Not because of the bond, not because of the magic, but because she wanted to. It was slower, softer, but no less intense. And when he responded, it wasn't restrained anymore. The world disappeared completely this time. No court, no war, no past, just heat and breath, and the dangerous realization that this, whatever this was no longer something either of them could ignore. When they finally broke apart, Lyra leaned back slightly, her chest rising and falling. That was a mistake, she said softly, but there was no conviction in it. No, he said. Her eyes met his. Then what was it? A pause. Then the beginning of something neither of us can control. Far beyond the garden, something dark stirred, watching, waiting. And in the forest, Kael was no longer alone. Back in the garden, Lyra didn't step away, and neither did he. The kiss should not have happened. That was the first thought Lyra had when she woke. The second was that she couldn't forget it. She stood once more on the same balcony from nights before, the cold air brushing against her heated skin, as if trying and failing to ground her. Everything felt different, too sharp, too alive. Her fingers pressed lightly against her lips. She could still feel him. That terrified her more than anything else. You are avoiding me, his voice came from behind her, low, calm, unavoidable. Lyra closed her eyes briefly. Am I? She asked. Yes. She turned slowly, and there he was, as composed as ever, as if nothing had changed, as if he hadn't just unraveled something inside her the night before. That's convenient, she said, because I'm trying to figure out if I regret it. A flicker passed through his expression. Gone too quickly to name. You do not. Her jaw tightened slightly. You don't get to decide that. No, he said, a pause. But I can observe. Lyra crossed her arms. And what do you observe? He stepped closer, not touching her. Not yet. That you are not afraid of what happened. Her pulse quickened. That doesn't mean it was a good idea. No, he agreed, another step. But it means it was real. That word again, real. It settled somewhere deep, too deep. Lyra looked away first this time, because if she didn't, she might close that distance again, and she wasn't ready for what that would mean. "I don't even know your name." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silence followed, heavy, different. When she looked back, something had changed, subtly, but unmistakably. "You have never asked." Lyra frowned. "I didn't think you'd answer. I would not have." That didn't surprise her. "But now?" she pressed. A long pause, the kind that felt like standing at the edge of something buried, something dangerous. "I had a name," he said at last. Lyra blinked. Had. Past tense. And now? His gaze darkened. "Now it is not spoken." "That's not how names work," she said quietly. "For you," he corrected. A faint chill ran down her spine. "For me, a name is not just identity." Another step closer. "It is power." Lyra studied him. "You're afraid of it?" she asked softly. His eyes met hers. "I am not afraid of anything, a beat, but I will not give my enemies a weapon. That was honest." "Then why tell me at all?" The question lingered, because he had started to. That meant something, didn't it? His gaze held hers for a long moment. Then, "Because you are already part of what I protect." Lyra's breath caught. "And what I destroy." The words sent a chill through her. "Destroy?" she echoed. His expression didn't soften. "I do not forgive betrayal." Something dark flickered beneath the surface. Old, buried, but not forgotten. "This is about Kael," she said quietly. His silence confirmed it. "You hate him." It wasn't a question. His jaw tightened. "I do not waste emotion on hate." Lyra raised an eyebrow slightly. "That sounds like a yes." A pause. Then, "He was not always my enemy." That surprised her. Lyra stepped closer, careful, measured. "Then what was he?" The air shifted, the past stirring between them. "He was my brother in all but blood." Lyra stilled. "I don't understand." "You will." His voice lowered. Darker now, less controlled. "We were raised together," he said. "Before titles, before crowns, before war." Lyra listened, not interrupting, not questioning, because something told her this mattered. "He was not always the Alpha King," he continued, "and I was not always what I am now." A faint bitterness edged his voice. "We trained together, fought together, bled for one another." Lyra's chest tightened slightly. "That doesn't sound like enemies." "We were not." A pause. Then, "There was a time I would have trusted him with my life." Something cold settled in Lyra's stomach. Because she already knew. That kind of trust didn't break easily. It shattered. "What changed?" she asked quietly. His gaze dropped briefly, then returned to hers, sharper, colder. "She did." The words were quiet, but they carried weight. Lyra's breath caught. "Your mate," she said softly. A flicker of something passed through his eyes. Pain, real, unhidden, for just a second. "Yes." The air seemed to still around them. Even the wind quieted, as if the world itself was listening. "She was mine," he said. "Not possessive, not cruel, just certain, bound to me by fate." Lyra's heart twisted, because she understood what that meant, more than she wanted to. "And Kael?" she asked carefully. His expression darkened. "He took her." The words landed like a blade. Lyra's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "Took her." His voice dropped. Dangerous, controlled. He wanted power, he said, and she was a means to it. Her stomach turned. "No." He broke the bond. Lyra's heart stopped. That wasn't supposed to be possible. Not naturally, not without consequence. "And then?" His voice tightened slightly. "He made her his." Lyra stepped back slightly. Shock flooding her system. "He forced her." A pause. Then, "Yes." The word echoed, heavy, sickening. "He claimed her," the king continued. "Impregnated her." Lyra's hand instinctively moved to her own abdomen, horror creeping in. "And she—" Lyra swallowed. "What happened to her?" "For the first time." His control cracked. Just slightly. "She died." The words were quiet, but devastating. Her body could not survive what he did, he said, nor the breaking of the bond. Lyra's chest ached, because she knew exactly how that felt. The emptiness, the tearing, the loss. "I felt her die," he said. His voice was no longer distant, no longer detached. It was raw, and he, a pause, sharp and cutting, called it necessary. Silence fell, heavy, unforgiving. Lyra stared at him, really saw him now, not just as the powerful, untouchable king, but as something else. Someone who had been broken, and never allowed himself to heal. "That's why you hate him," she whispered. His gaze met hers, dark, ancient, unforgiving. "That is why I will end him." The promise was absolute. Lyra's heart pounded, because suddenly, this wasn't just about her, or the bond, or the children. This was war, personal, violent, unavoidable. "And me?" she asked quietly. The question slipped out before she could stop it. His expression shifted slightly. "Just enough. You are not her." The answer was immediate, certain. "But you carry something he never should have touched." Her breath caught. "And that," he said quietly, "makes this far more dangerous than either of you realize." Far away, deep in the forest, Kael felt it, a shift, a pull, something awakening, and for the first time, he hesitated. Back on the balcony, Lyra stood between past and future, between two men bound by betrayal and a history soaked in blood. And now, she was at the center of. The forest did not welcome him. It tolerated him. Barely. Kael felt it with every step. The moment he crossed into the forbidden lands, something ancient had shifted. The air thickened, the shadows stretched unnaturally, and the silence, it wasn't empty, it was watching. "Stay close," he muttered. Rykor moved at his side, tense, eyes scanning every flicker of movement. "This place is wrong," Rykor said under his breath. Kael didn't respond, because wrong wasn't the word. This place was alive, and it knew they didn't belong. A branch snapped somewhere behind them, too deliberate. Kael turned sharply. Nothing. But the feeling remained, that they were being studied, measured, judged. "She's here," Kael said quietly. Rykor frowned. "You can't know that." Kael's jaw tightened. "I can." The pull was stronger now. Not the broken bond. Something else. Something deeper. Something that didn't feel like rejection. And that unsettled him more than anything else. Back in the Fae realm, Lyra couldn't stop thinking about what he told her. He took her. The words echoed in her mind, over and over, twisting, changing, refusing to settle. It didn't feel right. Not entirely. Not because she thought the Fae King was lying, but because something about it felt incomplete. "You're troubled." Lyra didn't turn. She recognized the voice now. "Do you ever get tired of appearing out of nowhere?" she asked. Kaelion stepped beside her, glancing out over the endless shifting horizon. "Never," he said lightly. "It keeps life interesting." Lyra sighed softly. "I'm not in the mood for your usual commentary." "That's unfortunate," he replied, "because I have some." She finally looked at him. "And what is that?" His expression shifted, subtle, less playful, more knowing. "You're starting to question him." Lyra stiffened. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." He tilted his head slightly. "You wear your thoughts very loudly." She looked away again. "That story," she said slowly. "About Kael," Kaelion hummed softly. "Yes. A tragic tale, betrayal, loss, revenge. Very on brand for this court." Lyra frowned. "You don't believe it." That made him pause. "Not long, but enough." "I believe it is his truth," Kaelion said carefully. Lyra's chest tightened. "That's not the same thing." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." Silence stretched between them, heavy, uncomfortable. "So what's missing?" Lyra asked. Kaelion glanced at her. "You're asking the wrong question." Her brows furrowed. "Then what's the right one?" He smiled faintly. "What if the story didn't happen the way either of them remembers it?" That sent a chill down her spine. "You think they're both lying?" she asked. "No," he said. "I think they're both telling the truth." Lyra blinked. "That doesn't make sense." "It rarely does," he said. "Not when power, love, and betrayal are involved." Her heart pounded, because suddenly everything felt uncertain. "Then what really happened?" she pressed. Kaelion's gaze drifted toward the distance, far beyond the court, beyond the realm itself. "There was a time," he said slowly, "when the Fae King had a name." Lyra stilled. He continued. And a heart. That part I find hard to believe, she muttered. Kaelion chuckled softly. You shouldn't. A pause. Because you're starting to see it. Lyra didn't respond. Because she was. And that scared her more than anything else. He loved her, Kaelion said. His mate. Lyra nodded slightly. That part I understand. Do you? Kaelion asked quietly. Her gaze snapped to him. Because love like that, he continued, doesn't just break a beat. It transforms. Lyra swallowed. Into what? His eyes met hers. Obsession. The word lingered. Dark, unsettling, too real. And Kael? She asked. Kaelion's expression shifted again. Harder now. More serious. He wasn't always the villain in that story. Lyra's breath caught. There was a war coming, Kaelion said. Even back then, power was shifting. Alliances were fragile. Lyra listened carefully. Every word mattered now. The woman in the middle of it all, he continued. She wasn't weak. That surprised her. She chose? Lyra asked. Kaelion didn't answer immediately. She made a decision, he said at last. That's not the same thing, Lyra pressed. No, he agreed, it isn't. Frustration flickered through her. You're not telling me everything. Of course not, he said lightly. Where's the fun in that? Lyra glared at him. This isn't a game. No, he said softly. It's much worse. The wind shifted, carrying something distant, something dangerous, far in the forest. A roar echoed. Deep, ancient, not wolf, not fae, something else. Kael froze. Rykor stepped back slightly. What was that? Kael's eyes narrowed. Not something we should ignore. The ground trembled faintly beneath their feet, and then it emerged, massive, twisted, made of shadow and bone and something far older than either of them. Its eyes burned with an unnatural light, locked onto Kael. You don't belong here, the creature growled. Its voice wasn't sound, it was pressure, inside his skull. Kael didn't move, didn't flinch. I'm not here for you. The creature tilted its head. You are here because of her, Kael's chest tightened. She is not yours anymore. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Kael's gaze darkened. She was never meant to be taken. The creature let out something between a laugh and a snarl. Nothing is ever taken without reason. Back in the Fae realm. Lyra felt it. Suddenly. Violent. The pulses inside her surged. Clashing. Fighting. Reacting. She gasped, doubling over slightly. Something's wrong. Kaelion's expression sharpened instantly. He's getting closer, he said. Lyra's heart pounded. Kael? The name felt different now. Heavier, more complicated. Not just the man who rejected her. Not just the Alpha King. But someone tied to a past she didn't fully understand. And a truth that was beginning to unravel. Kaelion looked at her carefully. You're standing in the middle of a story that has never truly ended, he said. Lyra swallowed. Then maybe it's time it does. Far away, Kael drew his weapon. The creature smiled. And the past finally began to catch up with the present. The moment Lyra felt Kael, everything shattered. It wasn't physical, not something she could see or touch, but it was there. A pull, sharp, uninvited, familiar. She staggered, gripping the nearest pillar as the force of it hit her. Her breath came uneven. No, she whispered. Not again. Not him. He's crossed the threshold. Lyra looked up sharply. Kaelion stood a few steps away now, his usual ease gone, replaced with something far more serious. You said he couldn't, she said. I said he shouldn't, Kaelion corrected. There's a difference. Her chest tightened. He's going to die. Maybe, Kaelion said. Lyra shook her head. No, something's wrong, I can feel it. He's not just here. He's connected. The word sat heavy in her chest, and she hated. Tell him to leave. The voice behind her was cold, controlled, familiar. Lyra turned. The Fae King stood at the edge of the hall now, shadows clinging to him like a second skin. His presence alone shifted the air, commanded it, dominated it. I can't, Lyra said. His gaze sharpened. You will. I don't know how, she snapped. The tension between them ignited instantly. You felt him, he said. That doesn't mean I can control him. No, he replied coldly. But it means he can feel you. That hit. Hard. Lyra's stomach twisted. You think he came here because of me? She asked. I know he did. Silence fell. Heavy. Unforgiving. Then maybe you should ask yourself why. Lyra shot back. His expression darkened. I already have. The words were loaded. Sharp. Too sharp. Lyra stepped forward. Her pulse racing, not from fear, from anger, from confusion, from something far more dangerous. You told me he took her, she said. That he destroyed your bond. And you expect me to just accept that as the full truth? His gaze locked onto hers. Deadly. Are you questioning me? Yes. The word echoed, loud, unavoidable. For a moment, the entire world seemed to still. You stand in my court, he said quietly, under my protection, and I'm still allowed to think, Lyra snapped. Power surged, the walls trembled faintly, the shadows deepened. You are allowed what I permit. Lyra didn't back down. I'm not one of your subjects. A dangerous silence followed. No, he said slowly, you are something far more complicated. Her breath caught, but she didn't let it stop her. Then stop treating me like I'm blind, she said, because I'm not. A beat. Then, tell me the truth. His jaw tightened. You already have it. No, she said. Her voice softened, but it didn't weaken. I have your version. That struck something deeper. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Then, names have power, he said quietly. Lyra frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Everything. He stepped closer, slow, measured, the tension between them tightening with every step. You asked for my name, he continued. Her heart skipped. And I did not give it. Lyra swallowed. You said it wasn't spoken anymore. His gaze darkened. That was a lie. Her breath caught. I buried it, he said, because it belonged to someone who no longer exists. The weight of that settled heavily between them. Then tell me now, Lyra said softly. Silence. Long. Heavy. Dangerous. And then, Erindor. The name echoed, not just in the room, but through the magic itself, through the walls, through the air, through her. It meant something. She could feel it, deep in her bones. Lyra's breath slowed. Erindor, she repeated softly. His eyes closed briefly, as if hearing it spoken again. Hurt. That was who I was, he said. Lyra stepped closer, careful, gentle. And now? She asked. His gaze met hers, dark, unyielding. Now I am what remains. Her chest tightened, because she understood that. Too well. Erindor, she said again. This time, more certain. Something shifted, subtle, but real. You shouldn't say it lightly, he warned. I'm not, she replied. Silence stretched. But it wasn't hostile anymore. Not entirely. Tell me what really happened, she said softly. His expression hardened again. You think I lied. I think you left something out. A pause. She chose him. The words hit differently this time. Lyra blinked. That's not what you said before. No, he admitted. Her heart pounded. Why? His gaze dropped briefly, then returned. Because it changes nothing. It changes everything, Lyra said. A beat. She chose him, she repeated. Not you. Something dark flickered in his eyes. She chose power, he corrected. Lyra shook her head. You don't know that. I watched her walk away. The words were quiet, but they cut deeper than anything else he had said. I felt the bond break, he continued, not because it was stolen. A pause. But because she let it go. Lyra's chest tightened. And you never asked why? She whispered. That landed. For the first time, he didn't have an answer. The silence that followed was different, not angry, not sharp, uncertain. She died anyway, he said finally. Lyra nodded slowly. I know. A pause. But maybe not for the reasons you think. His gaze snapped to hers. What are you suggesting? Lyra hesitated. Then, that maybe neither of you really knew her. The words hung in the air. Dangerous, but true, far in the forest. Kael dropped to one knee, blood staining the ground beneath him. The creature loomed above him, smiling. You still fight for her, it whispered. Kael's grip tightened on his weapon. I don't fight for her. A pause. I fight for what was done to her, back in the Fae realm. Lyra stood inches from Erindor, the truth unraveling between them, and for the first time, he looked at her not as something to control, not as something to protect, but as someone who might change everything. You are dangerous, he said quietly. Lyra met his gaze. I told you that already. A faint, almost smile touched his lips. Yes, he said, you did. And somehow, that felt like the beginning of something far more complicated than either of them were ready for. War was no longer coming. It had arrived. The forest screamed. Magic tore through ancient roots as something massive crashed against Kael, sending him skidding across the blood-soaked ground. The creature loomed again, towering, merciless, ancient beyond reason. You do not belong here, it growled. Kael wiped blood from his mouth, forcing himself to stand. I'm not leaving without her. The creature tilted its head. There is no her left for you. That struck deeper than any wound. Kael's grip tightened on his weapon. You don't know what you're talking about. The creature stepped closer. The ground cracked beneath its weight. I know what she has become. A pause. And I know what you made her. Kael stilled. You speak as if you were there, he said. The creature's lips curled. I was... Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. You want truth, Alpha? It continued. Kael's eyes darkened. I already know the truth. The creature laughed, low, mocking. No, it said war was no longer coming. It had arrived. The forest screamed. Magic tore through ancient roots as something massive crashed against Kael, sending him skidding across the blood-soaked ground. The creature loomed again, towering, merciless, ancient beyond reason. You do not belong here, it growled. Kael wiped blood from his mouth, forcing himself to stand. I'm not leaving without her. The creature tilted its head. There is no her left for you. That struck deeper than any wound. Kael's grip tightened on his weapon. You don't know what you're talking about. The creature stepped closer. The ground cracked beneath its weight. I know what she has become. A pause. And I know what you made her. Kael stilled. You speak as if you were there, he said. The creature's lips curled. I was... Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. You want truth, Alpha? It continued. Kael's eyes darkened. I already know the truth. The creature laughed, low, mocking. No, it said. You know the version that lets you sleep at night. Kael didn't move, didn't breathe, because something deep inside him knew that might be true. Then say it, Kael growled. Say what you think I did. The creature leaned closer. Its voice dropped, soft, deadly. You didn't steal her. Kael's chest tightened. She came to you. His breath caught. She chose you. The words echoed, too familiar, too dangerous. And you let her. Kael's jaw clenched. I loved her. The creature's expression twisted. No, it said. You wanted what she could give you. Power, strength, air. The accusation burned. You think I forced her? Kael snapped. I know you didn't stop her. That hit. Harder than anything else. Kael staggered slightly. She was dying, he said. The words came out rough, uneven. The creature stilled. She came to me already breaking, Kael continued. The bond with him, it was tearing her apart. Back in the Fae realm, Lyra felt it. A shift, a crack in the truth. What is happening? She whispered. Erindor's expression sharpened instantly. He's fighting something ancient, he said. Her heart pounded. No, she shook her head. It's more than that. She stepped back slightly, clutching her head. Memories, not hers, flashed. A woman, beautiful, crying. I can't survive this, the woman whispered. A bond breaking, not violently, but willingly. Pain, so much pain. I'm sorry, Lyra gasped. She left you, Lyra whispered, staring at Erindor. His entire body went still. Not because she didn't love you, Lyra continued, her voice trembling, but because she was dying. The words landed like thunder. Erindor's expression cracked. That's not possible, he said. But his voice, it wasn't certain anymore. She went to Kael, Lyra said, because she thought it would save her. Silence. Deadly. Unforgiving. And it didn't, Lyra whispered. Erindor's hands curled into fists. "No," he said, but doubt had already taken root. Far in the forest. Kael dropped to his knees. "She begged me," he said hoarsely. "She said the bond with him was killing her." The creature watched him closely now. "And you believed her. I had no reason not to." The roar echoed through the trees. "I tried to save her," Kael said. "I gave her what she asked for. I gave her a chance to live." A pause. "She carried my child because she chose to." Silence. "And she still died." The truth settled, heavy, final. The creature stepped back slightly. "Then you understand," it said quietly. Kael looked up. "You both destroyed her." Back in the Fae realm, Lyra felt tears sting her eyes. "It wasn't betrayal," she whispered. Erindor didn't move. It was desperation. His breathing slowed, heavy, controlled. "She didn't choose power," Lyra said softly. "She chose survival." A long pause. "And she lost anyway." The truth cut through everything, the hatred, the war, the years of pain, all of it, built on something broken. Erindor closed his eyes. For the first time, not in control, not untouchable, just human. "I felt her leave me," he said quietly. Lyra stepped closer. "I know." His voice cracked, barely, "and I hated him for it." Lyra's chest tightened. "And now?" she asked softly. He opened his eyes, and something had changed. "I don't know. That was more dangerous than hatred, because uncertainty could become anything. Far away." Kael stood again. "So what now?" he asked. The creature studied him. "Now," it said, "you face what you've both become." The forest trembled. War was no longer about revenge. It was about truth. And truth was far more dangerous. Back in the Fae realm, Lyra stood between two broken kings, and for the first time, she understood this wasn't her war, but she was the only one who could end it. Her hand rested over her abdomen, the two pulses no longer clashing, balancing, waiting. The world held its breath. The sky above the court of thorns darkened, shadows swallowing the violet glow until nothing remained but a heavy, endless dusk. Something was coming. No, someone. Lyra stood at the center of the great hall, unmoving, waiting. Her hand rested over her abdomen, her breathing steady despite the storm gathering around her. She could feel them, both of them. Not just the lives growing inside her, but the two forces pulling the world toward ruin, toward each other. "He's here." The voice beside her was quiet, controlled, but no longer untouched. Erindor stood at her side, not in front of her, not shielding her, beside her, for once. Lyra didn't look at him. "I know." The doors of the court trembled. Magic crackled along their edges. Then they exploded inward. Power crashed into the hall like a tidal wave. Wild, raw, familiar. Kael stepped through the Razrushani, his presence cutting through the Fae court like a blade. Behind him, wolves, warriors, bloody, unyielding. The Fae answered instantly. Shadows rose, weapons formed, magic sharpened, but Lyra moved first. "Stop!" the word rang out. Not loud, but absolute, something in it, something ancient. Commanded the room. Everything froze, not out of fear, but recognition. Lyra stepped forward, between them, between war and ruin. Kael's eyes found her instantly, and for the first time, he faltered. Lyra. Her name sounded different on his lips now. Not ownership, not dismissal, something else, something heavier. "You shouldn't be here," he said. A faint, almost bitter smile touched her lips. "Funny," she said. "I was told the same thing when you threw me away." The words struck, clean, precise. Kael flinched, barely, but enough. "I didn't—" "Don't," she cut him off. Her voice wasn't angry. That would have been easier. It was calm. "I know why you did it." Silence fell. "And I know what you thought you were protecting," she continued. Kael's jaw tightened. "You think this changes anything?" he asked. Lyra stepped closer. "No," she said. "A beat. It explains everything." Behind her, Erindor moved. The shadows followed him. "You dare stand in my court," he said, his voice low, dangerous, ancient. Kael's gaze snapped to him. I should have killed you years ago. And yet, Erendor replied coldly, you failed. The tension snapped tight. Magic surged. The ground trembled. Enough! Lyra's voice cut through them both. She turned, facing them, not as something caught between them, but as something above the conflict. You both lost her, she said. Silence. You both failed her. The truth burned. Kael's expression darkened. Erendor's hands clenched. And now you're about to destroy everything she died trying to protect. That landed. What are you talking about? Kael demanded. Lyra's gaze softened slightly, not with weakness, with understanding. She wasn't choosing power, Lyra said. She was trying to survive. Kael froze. Erendor didn't move. The bond was killing her, Lyra continued. And neither of you saw it. I did, Kael snapped. She came to me because she was dying, and you thought claiming her would save her. He faltered. Lyra turned to Erendor. And you thought she betrayed you. His silence said everything. You both loved her, Lyra said softly, a pause. And you both destroyed her. The truth settled, heavy, unavoidable. For the first time, neither of them argued. Lyra exhaled slowly. This war isn't about her anymore, she said. Her hand pressed more firmly against her abdomen. It's about your pride. The pulses responded, strong, bright, alive, and then the power erupted. Light and shadow burst from her in a wave, not violent, but overwhelming. The entire court bent around it. Magic answered. Reality shifted. Kael staggered. Erendor stilled. Lyra's eyes glowed, not just with Fae power, not just with something ancient, but with something new, balanced. They're not divided, she said softly. The pulses inside her moved. Together. They're both. Silence fell. What are they? Kael asked hoarsely. Lyra met his gaze. Then Erendor's. An end, she said. A pause. And a beginning. The power settled slowly. The room exhaled. No more war, Lyra said. Kael's jaw tightened. You think it's that simple? No, she said. Her gaze shifted to Erendor. But it starts with a choice. Silence stretched, long, heavy. Then Erendor stepped forward. The shadows receded. His gaze met Kael's, and for the first time, there was no rage, only something far more difficult. Understanding. She deserved better, Erendor said. Kael swallowed. She did. A pause. And so does this world. The words were quiet. But they changed everything. The tension broke. Not completely, not cleanly, but enough. The war ended, not with blood, but with truth. Lyra exhaled, her body finally relaxing, and then the pain hit, sharp, sudden. She gasped. Erendor was at her side instantly. Lyra. Kael stepped forward. What's happening? Lyra's breath trembled. They're coming. The world stilled. And then, light. Not blinding, not violent, but powerful. Two pulses, two forces. Becoming. The future. Unwritten. Erendor's hand found hers, steady, certain. Kael stood just beyond, watching, not reaching, but not turning away, and Lyra, at the center of it all, closed her eyes. Not as the rejected mate, not as the broken girl, but as something more, something new, something powerful enough to change everything. And as the first cry echoed through the court of thorns, the world began again. Epilogue. Years did not pass. They softened. The court of thorns no longer felt like a place of war. It breathed now, laughed, lived. Sunlight filtered through silver-leafed trees, spilling gold across the courtyard where two small figures ran wild and free. Faster! The girl shouted, her laughter ringing like bells. You cheated! The boy snapped back, though he was already chasing her again. They were chaos. Beautiful, unstoppable chaos. Lyra watched from the balcony, her lips curved into a quiet smile. Her hand rested lightly against the stone railing, her body relaxed in a way it had never been before. Peace looked good on her. They get that from you. The voice behind her was warm, amused, familiar. She didn't turn. You mean stubborn? She replied. A soft chuckle brushed the back of her neck before arms slipped around her waist, pulling her gently back against a solid chest. Relentless, he corrected. Lyra leaned into him instinctively. Dangerous. Mine, he murmured. She turned slightly in his arms, raising a brow. Careful, she said. We've had this conversation before. His lips curved slowly. Yes, Erindor said. His name no longer felt heavy. It no longer carried only grief. Now, it belonged to this man, the one standing behind her, the one who had learned how to love without control. His hand slid to her abdomen out of habit, even though the children were long since born, even though the life they had created now ran freely through the world outside. They're strong, he said quietly. Lyra's gaze softened as she watched the twins. The girl moved like shadow and light intertwined, quick, clever, unpredictable. The boy, calmer, but no less powerful. His presence steadied the space around him. They're balanced, Lyra said. Erindor pressed a kiss to her shoulder, slow, intentional. They're ours. The words wrapped around her heart. Not possession, not claim, belonging. And yet, they're also his, Lyra said gently. Erindor didn't tense, didn't pull away. That was the difference. I know. A pause. And I don't hate that anymore. Lyra turned fully this time, studying him. You've changed, she said softly. A faint smile touched his lips. So have you. Their foreheads rested together, the world quieted around them. And then, You're supposed to be getting ready. Lyra groaned softly. I am ready. You're barefoot. I like being barefoot. Erindor's gaze darkened slightly. You're also about to become my queen in front of every realm that once wanted us dead. Lyra smiled slowly. That sounds like their problem. He huffed a quiet laugh. You're impossible. And yet, she whispered, brushing her lips just barely against his, you're still here. His hand slid up to her jaw, tilting her face fully toward his. Always. This time, he kissed her properly, not rushed, not desperate, slow, deep, intentional. The kind of kiss that spoke of years, of trust built piece by piece, of passion that had never faded, only deepened. Lyra melted into it, her fingers curling into his shirt as she pulled him closer. The world could wait. It always could. A loud groan shattered the moment. Seriously? They broke apart. The boy stood at the edge of the balcony, arms crossed. You said no kissing when we're around. The girl appeared beside him, grinning. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, he muttered. Lyra laughed. Erindor sighed. This is what we created. Be grateful, Lyra said sweetly. They could have been worse. They still might be, he replied. The girl beamed. I heard that. Good, Erindor said dryly. Lyra shook her head, stepping away from him and walking toward the children. Come here, she said, kneeling slightly as they ran to her. Two small bodies collided into her. Warm, alive, everything. Are you ready? She asked them. For what? The boy asked. Magic? More important, Lyra said. The doors behind them opened and the world shifted again. Kael stood there, not as a king at war, not as a man broken by the past, but as something quieter, something steadier. He met Lyra's gaze, then the children's, and something in him softened every time. They've grown, he said. They don't stop, Lyra replied. The twins stared at him curiously. Are you coming to the ceremony? The girl asked boldly. Kael blinked slightly, then a small smile touched his lips. I wouldn't miss it. The boy studied him. You're not scary. Kael huffed softly. I've been told otherwise. Lyra met his eyes, and for the first time, there was no pain there, only acceptance, and something like peace. Thank you, she said quietly. Kael nodded once. For them, he replied. Not for forgiveness, not for the past, for the future. The ceremony began as the sun dipped low, gold and silver light weaving together across the sky. Lyra stood at the center once more, but this time, she wasn't alone. Erindor stood beside her, steady, certain, their hands intertwined. No force, no magic binding them, only choice, only love. I choose you, he said quietly. Lyra's breath caught, not because fate demands it, a pause, but because I do. Her fingers tightened in his. I choose you too, she whispered, and when their lips met, it wasn't the beginning, it wasn't the end. It was something far rarer, something earned, a love that had survived truth, pain, and time, and still chose to stay. Below them, two small voices whispered. "Do you think we'll be like them?" the girl asked. The boy considered. Stronger, he decided. She grinned. Definitely stronger. Above them, the world stood still for just a moment longer, long enough to remember that even in darkness, love could grow, wild, unbreakable, and eternal. The end, sequel, the Alpha who learned to love again. After losing his mate and watching her build a new life with the powerful Fae King, Alpha King Kael is left with a kingdom restored, but a heart still fractured. Haunted by guilt, regret, and the ghosts of a love he could not save, Kael rules with strength, but without purpose. Everything changes when a mysterious woman appears at the edge of his territory. Asher is unlike anyone he has ever encountered, powerful, unreadable, and dangerously alluring. She leaves no scent, no past, and no trace, except destruction. Entire villages vanish wherever she goes, and whispers begin to spread of a force that even ancient magic cannot explain. Drawn together by pain, power, and undeniable attraction, Kael and Asher enter a dangerous game of trust and control. But as their connection deepens into something dark and intoxicating, secrets begin to unravel. Because Asher isn't just hiding from the past, she may be the very thing that destroyed it. And Kael must face an impossible choice: hold on to the memory of the mate he lost, or risk everything for a love that could either save him or end him.
You betrayed me.
I had no choice.
There's always a choice.
I did it for us.
Lies! I can't trust you.